Oh, hey David. How's
Hello.
everything going?
Anyway,
Nice. All right, so hello and welcome to All Devs number 47. It's another week or another 2 weeks, and then another All Devs. Today we have a number of agenda items and a couple of demos. So we'll just go over these here. Today for announcements we have three here about just general community efforts, and then we have 4 demos, including a lot of work from OneHive as well as from Aragon One. Before we get started, is anyone new to the call? I think, as far as I can tell, everyone has been here before. I just don't know about fellow Jitster, whoever's anonymous.
we'll keep anonymous.
Maybe said Jitzer wants to continue to be anonymous. So no introductions. Otherwise, we'll go. Yes, Luke.
If we end up having time at the end, I'd love to tack on one more demo.
Great. Let's do it. Okay, then let's go straight to the topics. So the first one, workshop call for suggestions. This is just a general call. You'll see in the notes and in the forum post, we have been doing a couple of development-oriented workshops. And really this is kind of a call just to have more ideas for which ones would be useful to the community, as well as internally. And so we can prioritize those types of workshops. Feel free. It's a pretty much open page and you can comment on it. So we'd love to hear your thoughts. The second announcement is just about the SDK. We're starting a couple new tooling efforts and they're beginning to go, or they're underway, and we're going to be sharing a lot more information, both in today's demos and also continuously as we do more and more work. What's linked here is just a stub page right now that's meant to be public, but over time we'll be moving more and more into that page, and I just haven't had time yet today to start moving information into there. So that's something that will get filled out with time, and hopefully we'll come back and look at this page continuously. And same as before, you should have at least comment ability in this page, and so we'd also love to hear your thoughts around the direction things are going in and get your feedback that way. And then final announcement is just about joining the Aragon GitHub organization. So link there is a forum post, and it's an generally open invitation for anyone who's paying attention, for someone who's contributed to the Aragon community to join that GitHub organization, so you can display the badge. You also have the ability to clone and work on repos a little bit more easily than having a fork every time. So it might ease some of those frictions, and hopefully it just kind of feels like you're a more integrated part of the community once you join that organization. So instructions are there in that forum post, but generally you can just ping me and I'll send the invite through GitHub. Okay. Any words or comments on these announcements? Otherwise, we'll go straight to the demos. Okay, sounds like we're in demos. The first demo then is for Fabry and Rodri for the Dandelion organizations.
So to start, I'm going to create a token request. We don't see here that Fabri is the only one. This is Fabri in the organization. So I'm going to create a token request to enter to the door. I'm going to ask 10, and I'm going to offer 0.2 EH. So once the token request is created, somebody from the org need to accept the request, and we submit a vote. Okay. For some reason, it's not displaying the request. There we are. Now I'm going to transfer the contract to Fabri, to the other part of the demo.
Yep, thank you, Rodri. Let me share my screen. Let me know when you can see. Can you see my screen?
Yeah, we can see it.
All right. Okay. Okay, now the token request is created, and me as the only member of the organization, I'm going to. So the process, the flow for the token request is users that want to join the organization perform a request, and the shareholders of the organization can approve or reject the proposal. So now I'm going to submit. Yeah. So as you can see here, I have to lock some tokens before creating the vote. So okay. Now we go here, we should see once the transaction goes through. Okay, now you can see that when I have 25 that is locked, and the vote should be activated. Okay, I think that we set the vote into 1 day, so we won't be able to see how Rodri joins the organization. But yeah, so here the members can approve or reject the proposal. If they approve it, then the offered amount by Rodri is going to go to the finance or to the vote of the organization, and yeah, the requested amount is going to be minted for Rodri. Yeah, the problem here is that since we said we should have set a lower amount of time for the votes, so we can execute it. But yeah. Okay, the other thing that we wanted to mention is that we have an oracle, a token oracle. This one is a background app that, for those that are not familiar with ACL oracles, they perform like granular permission actions. So, for example, we have set it for the time lock, so we only allow token holders to perform actions to create proposals on the org. So basically, for example, if I want to create a proposal, I have to lock some tokens on before we perform a check on the token balance oracle to ensure that we have at least one token of the org tokens. Okay, for redemptions, if we want to, for example, as Rodri mentioned, if someone disagrees with the decisions that are being taken on the org, I just can burn on my shares and redeem the amount that corresponds in the vote. So let's say well, this is one mechanism that we have in the organization, that I cannot redeem my tokens if I voted yes on the last proposal that was created. So we can show right away here that I can exit because because of that functionality. If I voted yes on the last proposal, I cannot. I don't know if someone have any questions, or maybe Luke, you want to add something?
Yeah, I'm wondering with the real example, and I know PyDAO is probably one of the best examples, just kind of what their workflow looks like. I guess it's similar to what we just saw, but it's kind of like Rodri, I guess, was the person who was requesting to join the organization, and then Fabri, you were the person who was like more of the gatekeeper or like an existing member.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I was just saying with like a real example, it might be more illustrative because they have a whole bunch of like open votes and closed ones, but maybe it's just too much information because there's like all sorts of votes in different places with their organization.
Right.
Yeah, PyDAO is a really interesting case for this because they effectively use token requests as a fixed price like crowd sale contract, which it wasn't really intended for. It was like intended to kind of emulate the Moloch style tribute workflow where each member is like asking permission to join the org. In the PyDAO case, anybody that wanted to join the org and had the right price was effectively going to be accepted. And so they had a huge volume of requests, and then they kind of manually had to go through and approve each one. It probably suboptimal for exactly what they were trying to do, but it worked. And effectively, they at one point had a ton of these token requests like pending and a ton of open votes, and it exposed a pretty like significant pain point within the client, which is worth mentioning. If you go to the token request page, Fabri. And you notice this status of pending, which is what it was when it was first created. Even though the vote has already been submitted, that doesn't update. And so PyDAO had a whole list of these like pending votes, some of which they had already like processed and are going, and we're just kind of waiting for the vote to conclude. But the status didn't update, so they were going through and sometimes like submitting the same request twice. Sometimes they weren't sure if they had submitted one or not, and there just isn't an easy way for us to connect those things. And the reason for that is because when you click to submit something, you're not actually interacting with the token request app. You're forwarding through the voting app, and only after it goes through the vote does it update or create any events on the token request side. So we haven't been able to kind of solve this in a nice way. We talked about creating like a custom dashboard for Dandelion to like make these flows kind of feel more connected. There's like the forwarder API kind of PR that we built off of a solution for this, but then it was never merged into the client. So we have yet to be able to solve this issue, and it's like pretty significant issue with the workflow in terms of onboarding users to the org.
And to clarify, its token request is at the end of the forwarding path?
So token request, the action that's happening is finalize token request. And in order to finalize the token request, and what happens when you finalize the token request is you transfer the tribute amount into the vault and you mint tokens. And that's the terminal action. The role for that is assigned to the voting app, and the role to create votes in the voting app is assigned to the time lock app, and you tack on the token balance oracle. So in order to actually press the submit button, you have to be an existing member of the org because you check the balance oracle. You have to lock tokens via time lock, and then you can create a vote, and the vote has to pass in order for this request to be approved, if that's helpful.
Okay, so in this case, in terms of this submit button right now, only Fabry would be able to press this. Rodri wouldn't be able to because he wouldn't have permission.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay. Gotcha. And so, yeah, when you click submit, it is going to go through the vote. And
Yeah, right.
That's the part that's like really weird because you don't know, like,
Yeah, we can't.
Yeah, we don't have a way to tell if it was already submitted or is it still pending.
Yeah,
Yeah.
ideally we'd have a status that said submitted and potentially even like a link to the vote that's that exists so that you can check the status.
Yeah, that makes sense. And it's also, I guess, exacerbated because the Dandelion voting app has to process actions one at a time, and so you have a bunch of these queued up and you just like have to keep waiting until they're done one by one.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's the reason that the permissions for submitting votes are also so important in Dandelion, because you want to ensure that you don't have votes stacked up so that people have the opportunity to potentially exit in response to votes happening. So Dandelion voting, unlike the normal voting, you can't change your vote, you can't execute early, and votes are like separated by a buffer time. And this enables kind of a slightly different dynamic to the voting process, where people get kind of locked in if they vote yes on a decision for some period of time.
Mm.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, thanks, Fabry and Rodri. I think this is the first time we've seen the Dandelion org in all devs, and it's been out for quite a while. I think since February, and hopefully we have had some success. But hopefully there'll be more and more organizations that create these orgs, despite the UX issues. And well, hopefully we'll fix the UX issues too. That's what a lot of the tooling and a lot of these discussions are for. So moving right on, we have agreements by Facu. So we've been doing a lot of work in terms of this regard, in terms of how we're going to connect the client and the court. And yeah, I think Facu will have a lot to show.
Hey, yeah. Can you hear me fine there?
Yep.
Okay, let me share my screen. Should I don't see like the share screen button here?
Yeah.
Should it be the start live stream or?
No, it's a bit hidden. It's all the way to the left on the bottom, beside the hand.
Yeah, I saw it. Yeah, I remember it now. Sorry. Can you see my screen there?
Yep.
Yeah, great. Okay. So yeah, basically what I wanted to show today was to walk you a little bit through the spec that we've been working in the last couple of weeks around the agreements hub. I'm going to talk about a little bit what it is, and I mean what the agreements hub is, and yeah, what we're planning to, at least for the the scope of the first version. And maybe in the upcoming all the calls we can share more details about how the designs are looking and how it's going the implementation process around this. But today I'm going to focus only on the specification. So we wrote this document that we're going to make public hopefully soon, so you can all come and share some thoughts or leave questions or improvements or whatever feedback you may have. But yeah, let's go through it a little bit. So for those who doesn't know, the agreements means to be the glue between an organization and our own core. Actually, the idea is to allow people to work with any dispute resolution protocol, but of course we're going to provide the working experience with our own core, and the idea is to have support for this in the core dashboard that we currently have. So probably you can think again as the barrier between our organization and our own core. So the idea of having agreements is to turn DAOs into an optimistic organization. That's mainly what drives us here. The idea is that instead of, for example, creating votes for every action that you want to do or perform inside of an organization, the idea is to submit an intention of doing something to the organization and allowing people in the organization to challenge your actions, and they will have a window period to do that, and of course if nothing happens during that challenging period, you can execute your action. That's basically the main idea. The thing here is when I mention challenges is that of course challenges can be raised to the court. There's a middle settlement period before going to court, just because we don't want to spam the court with any potential challenge that we have in an organization. But I'm going to get into the details about this later. Feel free to interrupt me and ask me questions if you have some, because I may assume that you know something, because I've been too immersed into this during the last days that you don't actually. So let me know. So there were a couple of considerations because as you may think, this basically interferes with the whole organization structure. So it's not so easy to introduce agreements. Basically means having again a window period before any action could be executed. So there are a lot of considerations here going on around how this is going to work with the forwarding chain, or how are we going to install agreements in our organization that it's already deployed. There's an small interesting part around staking. Of course, the idea here is since we're trying to turn organizations into optimistic organizations, the idea is that in order to perform an action or to enqueue or mention they have intentions to do an action, the idea is to have staking backing those actions. So there's a whole staking process around agreements, basically depositing some collateral in order to be allowed to scale actions, and that staking will be part of what it's at stake when you get challenged, basically. So it's an interesting part. So let's go into the information flows. This is probably the most interesting one, and we cover here a few different scenarios, like installing agreements, the signing process, performing actions. I'm going to get into the details in a second. Challenging actions and managing stakes. So let's see one by one, and I hope we can give you an idea of what is going to be under scope for the initial version of agreements. So basically, when installing a new agreement set, the idea is that you have a bunch of input to provide, and this is basically in order to parameterize all the things that I've been talking about. For example, which is going to be the token collateral that you will use for staking, which is the amount that will need your people in the organization requiring to have stake in order to scale an action, which is the amount of tokens that people will need to stake in order to challenge actions, which is the dispute resolution protocol, which are the challenge period and the settlement period durations, and of course the list of permissions. This is basically because since agreements is going to be the middleman, as I was saying, between the people in the organization and the rest of the apps, since every action should be going through the agreements. Basically, the agreements needs to have some permissions in order to execute those actions. So yeah, it's not small. Actually, it's pretty considerable amount of input that you need to specify for agreement. So the user experience here is it's a huge challenge. It's getting interesting. Let's talk a little bit about the signing process. So basically, behind staking, there is the idea of signing an agreement. You can see the staking action as a user. Like staking for an agreement, you can see that as a signing action, which means basically if I stake a certain amount of tokens that I need to stake in order to scale actions for an agreement, you can see that as I'm agreeing to sign the agreement. We've been discussing some other permissions here because, of course, it's not probably a shared interest that anyone could scale actions in any organization just because of having staked some amount of tokens. So we've been discussing some particular permissions here, like using the token oracle developed by OneHive, or using custom ACL permissions. There are like different flavors we're discussing. But the idea behind this is basically people will need to do something to sign the agreement, of course, unless the organization leaves it open to anyone. But they will have to do something in order to agree with the agreement, and that will mean that they will start being able to scale in actions in the organization. So this is, let me see, yeah, this is more or less what is going to happen in the client when a user tries to sign an agreement. Basically, the green arrows means, like, you can see this as if calls or reading information from smart contracts, or and the red ones are basically performing a transaction. So usually we won't prefer like having too many red arrows there. Unfortunately, there are a few cases we cannot solve. For example, in this case, in order to sign an agreement, you need to again, I'm showing here a case where you need to stake some tokens. So we cannot rely on ERC20 that are compliant with prove and call patterns, because not all of them, probably the most used one, DAI, doesn't support it. So yeah, we won't rely on that. So basically, a user will see the agreement, will fetch its content, which you can see as a human readable. We can say bylaws or rules for the organization, and basically the user will check if the user can sign the agreement. Here it's when it comes to the whole part about whether if we have a token balance oracle, or whether we use like operational permissions with the ACL or whatever. And in case everything goes fine, then the user can deposit the collateral, which means approving the staking amount that we'll have for collaterals for scaling actions, and then just sign the agreement. Not sure how we're going with time, but let me know, Brett, if I should go faster. Otherwise,
Yeah, in the interest of time, let's just say maybe 3 minutes more, and
Okay,
we'll see
okay.
what we get through.
Okay. So performing actions. Here was an interesting, I'm not going to get into the details about this, but it was an interesting, like a complex scenario around forwarding paths. This is because now that we have the agreements, again, being the man in the middle of any action that the user can perform, we have like more different situations of transaction paths we may want to offer to the user. So we're going to reduce the scope here in order to be able to deploy an initial version of agreements. The idea is not to solve the problem of getting or showing the user the multiple transaction paths that they might have available, but the idea is to prioritize the agreements, the paths that can go through an agreement, either by signing an agreement or staking more collateral in an agreement. So what this means is basically, if we discover that there's a way the user can perform an action by signing an agreement or having stake more tokens into an agreement, we'll offer that path. Otherwise, we'll go through the traditional forwarding path that we all know. Again, this one is pretty much simple. This diagram shows a little bit how user will be able to scale an action. It's basically just making sure that the user has read the last content of the agreement in case it had changed, and basically then just creating an action because the user should have already signed the agreement. So it's fairly simple. This one becomes a little bit more interesting about challenging. This is the part where the action is getting close to be raised to court, but it's not immediately disputed into the court. The idea is that when someone challenges an action, it basically stakes some collateral backing that decision, and the people, the user that scaled the action has two options here. One is to either agree and settle the challenge, or reject it and raise the dispute to court. So when the challenger submits a challenge, it basically sends or specifies an amount of collateral tokens that they will agree in case the user wants to settle in order to not to raise the dispute to court. It could be up to this stake that the submitter staked in order to collateral that action, right? So you can ask more than that. Of course, if you ask for the maximum amount that you can have, it's more or less the same as raising it to court and then losing. You will have to pay for the court fees, but it's more or less the same. So yeah, if we have, I don't think we have too much time to get into the details about this. But here, the situation, as you can see, we see like too many red arrows here. This means a complex situation again in terms of UX, because we'll need to perform many transactions to make that happen. And yeah, things get complicated from the UI, but it's an interesting thing to solve. And here it gets even worse when the submitter of the action decides to reject a challenge, which basically means that you will be raising up the dispute to court because he needs to pay the other half of the dispute fees. By the way, the challenger submit or approve the half of the dispute fees initially in case the dispute is raised, the action is raised to the court by the submitter. So here the submitter needs to approve the other half. He needs to submit evidence. This is an optional step. Maybe they already, we're doing some handling around the evidence there, that there's some evidence submitted in advance, but they could add more. And finally, at the end, of course, they will need to execute the ruling, which basically means fetching the resolution from the court and executing the settlement in the agreement itself to see what should be done with the action itself. Okay, so yeah, there's a ton of information here around how all these states are being managed, which are all the staking states that will model in the agreements. Yeah, there's a lot of information here that would be super helpful if you can read and leave feedback for. But yeah, we'll need to make this public first. But yeah, hope that I can give you at least an idea of what this means, and of course I hope you find it useful as well. Any questions or things you may want to discuss briefly?
That's super interesting. Also as a template for doing other applications. I love to see the UML graphs there. Where are you going to share it? Are you going to share it in the forum probably?
Yeah, the idea is to share it soon. Maybe, I mean, yeah, we don't need to discuss anything else. We will agree on sharing it, so it's a matter of making it public. But yeah, hopefully maybe today or tomorrow. And yeah, maybe through the forum post or the Discord, any of those, or maybe both. But yeah, glad you like the diagrams. It was, I guess it was super interesting to have all that information, especially to make sure that we were all on the same page about how this is going to work and what are we going to expect from this app. Yeah, it was useful.
Yes, it makes things much more easy to understand.
Yeah, definitely.
Awesome. Okay, so in the interest of time, I think we should move on to the next demo. This does most likely mean that, Luke, both your demo and as well the final one here, Fabry, the app installer one, we may just have to move to the all devs in 2 weeks, unless you think they're quite short. And we'll see how long the next one takes. And anyhow, to wrap the agreements up, there's definitely a lot of information. It's very complete. And as we go, we'll most likely share designs as well. Our timeline and our targets for implementing this are quite tight. So hopefully even by the time we get to the next all devs, we might have a demo around this and how it all works in our organization to clarify any points. But without further ado, the next demo is all about the new tooling, and both Pierre and Gabby, if you'd like, you can share your screens.
Good. Sure.
And I can't actually take notes, so maybe Luke, if you still have the notes, do you mind taking them? I can't take them because I'm sharing the screen on YouTube and it'd be awkward.
Yeah, I don't have the notes up. I can take notes if somebody sends me the link.
Yeah, let me get that link. I'll share it in the channel again. Oops, not that one. Okay, but otherwise, Ken and Gabby, feel free to go.
Cool. Can you guys see my screen?
Yep.
Okay, so yeah, I'm going to start like introducing the project and showing like the prototyping part, and then Gabby is going to show more the research part. Yeah, so this project for now is named the new toolkit, or we also call it Plumberry, and these are like code names, and we are still thinking of a name for that project. And it's going to be a library that is inspired from two things. So the first one is Aragon.js. So Aragon.js is a library to interact with the Aragon organizations, but it was really built in a way that it is meant to be used in the client. So where we have this library wrapper here that is used by the client, and then this other library API that is used by apps. So the idea of this library is really to consolidate all of that, all of this, or at least the API part and the wrapper part into like the same library, so that it makes it super easy for people to interact with the Aragon organization, but from the outside of the client, not from an Aragon app anymore. It's also heavily inspired by the Aragon toolkit, which is basically the Aragon CLI made as a library. So yeah, that's how the project started, really, and there are a lot of good ideas in there that we are reusing to make it as this new library. Also, one aspect of this new library is that it's going to work the same everywhere. So it's going to work on Node.js, or in the browser, or in like even other environments in the future. So yeah, this project that we created in GitHub is really just a repo to experiment on things as we design this new API, and so we can kind of validate technically and play a little bit with the code as we design the API. Yeah, we have different projects in there. So core is really containing like the entire library, like the base library to do these interactions. And I'm going to show later what are the connectors. So we have here two connectors. React is going to be the library that is built on top of this library to like the same way we're having API React for Aragon.js to make it easier for React developers to interact with the library. We're going to have the same thing for this new library. And then we have this organization viewer, which it's going to be two demos to validate that the IDs work both in a web environment and in a CLI Node.js environment. And this document is where we started to like draft the new API and how it might look like. It's really early at the moment, but the idea is really to like iterate a lot on this. So to release early a first version and then discuss with the community and with the different users of like the current library and people that want to use this new library and see if it fits all the needs and if it feels good. And so it's the version that you see now is probably going to change a lot in the future. But yeah, that's the current state of things right now. So the way it works is that we have this main object here, connection, which is like initiating everything else, and we pass to it two things. The first thing is a signer. So for now, a signer is just an Ethereum provider, just like some object that has the capabilities of signing transactions. And yeah, so it can be any object that follows like the standard Ethereum provider, and we want to be compatible with that. And then the second one is the connector, and the connector is the way we're going to fetch the data from the blockchain. So that's why it's interesting, because we would like to provide different ways to fetch data from the blockchain. So we're going to include at least 3 connectors by default. And the most important one is the graph, because we want to be compatible with to make it easy for people using the graph to have like all their data there and to fetch it through this library easily. Another one is the connector Ethereum provider. So this one is going to be very similar to the way Aragon.js works, when it's going to just read data directly through the Ethereum API to like go through the events and build a state from that. And then the connector JSON is really, that's what we use to test things, or it just allows to pass a big description of an organization as a JSON, and then we can interact with it directly. And this is just like a quick overview of the current state of things. So the way it's going to work is that from this connection object, you can deploy an organization, of course, or you can also fetch an organization by doing that, and then it returns the organization object that contains all kind of methods to interact with the organization, like do the things that you can do in the CLI or in Aragon.js, and it also contains like it's itself an event emitter object, so you can listen to some events, like knowing, for example, if you listen to apps and an app gets installed, you should receive in your app automatically the updated list of apps that are installed on the organization, and then the different types that we are dealing with. And and then finally, I wanted to show a quick demo of the Node.js version of from Node.js, to use the library from Node.js. So this is a JSON description of the permissions of an organization, and you can see here how we instantiate the connection. So we say here that as the connector we want the JSON one, which is embedded. So there is no need to pass a custom connector, but in the future it's also going to be possible to pass a custom connector this way, so that the library can connect to anything really. And here we are passing the data from the JSON file to it. Then we fetch an organization, and here we fetch the permission. So this is asynchronous because that's where it can be fetched from a remote source. And then we log them. So yeah, that's just like a super small demo, but just to show what's going to be like a realistic interaction with an organization, like to display permissions. So that's it on my side, and now Gabi is going to show the research part.
Hey, let me share the screen. I'm gonna be really quick, and I would like to mention that what Pierre showed, a custom connector that we were discussing could be possible, is like a Postgres SQL database, so you can fetch information from your own server on that side and create your custom connector. And then from the research that we did, I'm gonna go over it, just a few general findings that we get, and why we are deciding to, for example, use TypeScript, because we are seeing a lot of projects using it, and we believe it's much more safe and useful to be more useful code and secure code. We also are going to use ethers for this library, and it's becoming increasingly useful, and a lot of projects are also relying on it, and it's a super lightweight API and a library. And then other general findings are just as a test framework, Gitbooks as a documentation. These are we are not sure yet on this one. Finally, we did a lot of look into different projects and how they are using their connection to the blockchain and the graph as well. And I will share this link for you if you want to go more deep into what we found. And one mention is that Colony.js have a really nice way of connecting into blockchain, and different ways to handle in that, both with GraphQL and with the Ethereum providers. So that's was an interesting repositories to look at. And then into the design document that we are starting to draft and to share, I would like to show a bit the schema that we are thinking about into the Aragon subgraph. The main two queries are going to be DAO Factory and APM Registry. The DAO Factory is going to handle all the first class state with the kernel ACL permissions, and the APM Registry is going to handle all the repo creations and how that maps to the app bases. So I'm going to also share that link so you can look in more detail. But that was it, and hopefully we can see the Fabrice demo. So yeah, thanks.
Awesome. Okay, so we have 3 minutes, Fabry, if you'd like to try doing your demo. On the tooling side, we'll have, of course, more information as it moves to be public in the next couple of days, both on the forum and on Discord. So just drop by there, and hopefully you'll see them. But all yours, Fabry.
Yeah. I will share my screen again. Let me know when you can see.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, so the idea of the app installer is we've seen that many people have been requesting to how do I install redemptions or token requests as a standalone app and not necessarily creating an LNR. So yeah, that was the inspiration of this. So basically, you enable your account, you input your DAO address or your domain. So, here we do like this step is to ensure that all apps have been have loaded, so we can, for example, redemptions needs to have the vault and the tokens address for initialization. So yeah, we make sure that we can load them before the user can go to the next step. So here you can select one or you can select both of them. Here I'm going to install both. Yeah, here is like this is mainly inspired by the Aragon client or by the onboarding process. So yeah, I'm going to select Ether and DAI for the renewal tokens, and going to select the same for token request. Yeah. Then this is like the onboarding process that you already know. Here you can review the configuration. And yeah, and then you go to the final process. This calculates the transaction path. Yeah, the limitation here is that, for example, you need to have on your organization the transaction path for both creating the app instance by the proxy and creating the ACL permissions has to have the same transaction path. So I think most of the templates on Aragon have configured this way. Are configured this way. So yeah, I don't think there will be major problem there. So okay, now if this MetaMask will be prompted to sign the transaction. Okay. This will likely, for example, in the company template, is going to create a vault. Okay. Now you can see the vault creator. Here you have the create a new available links on redemptions, create a permission, and the same for token request. I'm going to wait. Okay, now you can see the both app installed. The tokens. Yeah. Yeah, this is pretty much the app installer. I'm using a lot of functionality from the toolkit. Obviously, when Plumber is released, I will be migrated to use that. But yeah, maybe in another call we can discuss the implementation and also other stuff. Thanks.
Awesome. That's super exciting to see. I can't wait for people to use this and also for more apps to be added to that experience. So I think quite a few we could have quite a few apps added there, and it just make everything a little bit easier.
Yeah, we can discuss in another time the implementation.
Yep. Yeah, let's talk offline. Okay, cool. So unfortunately, Luke, we are a bit over time. So unless the demo is quite quick, maybe in 2 or 3 minutes, we can move that one to next week or the week after.
Yeah, I mean, we don't need to try and squeeze it in. I will say that if you look at the forum thread and the updates from OneHive, there are instructions for testing the Gardens template on Rinkeby. If anybody is interested in kicking the tires on that. The template is still a work in progress, but it combines fundraising and some of the elements of dandelion organizations and conviction voting into a template designed for like kind of public communities to coordinate resources. So it's going to be really cool, and I would encourage everybody to test it out and give us feedback.
Awesome. So I'll include the links there as well in the notes, but they're also available in the forum thread. We'll, of course, have a link here as well, but you'll see that is in the Gardens template and the demo. Yeah, only people on the live stream saw that, so you can watch it on YouTube afterwards. Okay, great. Then we'll have the next All Devs. Let's check the calendar. It's going to be May 11th. And that'll be All Devs 47 at the same time. And until then, have a good one.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, guys.
Cheers, guys.
Bye. Bye, guys.